Hi, and welcome to the last panel talk of the day. And my name is Louise Vanerell, and I'm taking the moderating role here today. I have with me together a good panel of people, and we're going to talk about the Workforce 3.0, which means upskilling, reskilling, and what the modern day workforce is going to look like. So, we need to talk about AI innovation. How are we actually going to be able to use all the things that are now available to us? And I think it's easy to talk about the fact that the tech is one thing, but if we want to make this valuable and scalable and usable, we need to talk about the human side. So when we talk about innovation in AI today, and I would like all of you to first answer the question as shortly as you can, and then I would like you to introduce yourself. So, what skills would you say is the most needed one when we today talk about innovation when it comes to AI and the technical field? And I'll start with you, Kajsa.
Wow, short as possible, curiosity. Yeah. Absolutely. I would say
you stole mine.
I am so sorry, gonna have to try again. I would say just a drive, trying things out, willing to fail. I think that is absolutely the most important thing.
Thank you.
All right. Creativity.
Jakob? Creativity?
I think that is my crucial, or what I'm seeing as the most crucial thing to do. If you do not have the creativity, you cannot succeed. Yeah, shortly.
Short one.
Yeah,
that leaves you to it.
Oh no. Fearlessness, like in the fearlessness of trying and failing sometimes, if that makes sense. Like, make curiosity lead and be fearless in that and follow that feeling.
My short response before I let you introduce yourself is that it sounds like everybody needs to be a bit more like entrepreneurs.
Like what?
Entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Yeah. But I will start with you, Alex. Please introduce yourself.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah. Curious.
Yeah, I run my own business. I've been working with the TA scene for the last 16 years. Been running my own business for the last 3 years, and that's also where we got to know each other. So I help organizations more or less become a bit more data-driven and question the old ways of doing things in order to, you know, sort of move the needle forward when it comes to hiring the right people and having the right mindset, measuring the right things when it comes to talent acquisition.
Jakob?
I'm Jakob Ökvist. I'm working as an innovation. Is it that one? Or that one? Working as an innovation developer at Advania, one of the biggest IT companies in Sweden and Nordics, and actually one of the biggest IT companies that is not public in Europe. So I'm trying to help our organization internally and with our strategic customers how we can help them move forward. And nowadays I'm working very on the edge on AI, of course. Very much internally, first of all. Yeah.
Good. Kajsa?
Yeah, so funny enough, I have a little bit of a similar profile as Alex, but maybe more on the technical side. So I've worked with data science, machine learning, AI for the past 10 years. And as the past 5 years, I've been doing it as in my own company, as a consultant. And I do both the implementation side, meaning, you know, everything from the discovery, problem formulation, as well as the implementation, but also, you know, a bit more AI strategy now lately as well, because I see the need for both. And yeah, I mean, I would say I also see myself as a little bit of an entrepreneur. It's funny that you bring up that. Yeah.
Perfect. Then we can easily sort of say that we have the technical side, we have the organization side, and we have people and recruitment side with us here today. I think it's really important when we talk about anything related to technical innovation and transformation and innovation to not get stuck in, you know, we talk from a technical perspective or we talk from a organizational perspective. But that we always sort of bring all the different ones to the same table, because otherwise we just keep getting stuck on, you know, finding the perfect solution from the technical side, which doesn't take the other things into account. So I'm happy to have all your different perspectives with us to the table. But I think it's one of the things that we keep running into is sort of resistance to to change, which is very deeply human, but it, comes into effect when we talk about bringing in new ways of working, at the very least. So if we start with a very general question, which I would like to hear your different takes on, but how do we turn resistance into some sort of agency where people feel like they are actually in charge? Would you like to start?
Where they are in charge.
Yes.
I think one of the most important thing is to let them speak. I think I see when I'm talking internally and when I'm talking to the customers, I say a big problematic is that we take the lead. As we start to come with the idea, they need to follow instead of just listen to where they actually are. And I think the big problem is that you start a little bit like you're building a house. You're starting on the roof, but you actually have to start on the bottom. You have to find the problems. You have to actually be quite, you have to be able to answer hard questions, but you have to find the right, like you're doing your own salad. You have to have the right ingredients to have a great salad, but it can look pretty different, and every organization looks different, so you cannot follow a strict Caesar, if I say it in like a metaphorical way. You may want a Roman salad or with another topping on it, because the organization looks quite different, because they have different obstacles in a way that you need to handle. And I say when I'm as a bigger organization, I see that's a problem internally by us. We have 17 different areas, and the different areas have different issues, and that we have to conquer. So I think it's like a conclusion is you have to start in the bottom and really ask the organization and the people within the organization or the customer or the people, the culture, where are you? And then you can start building the house to fulfill it. I think because I think everyone is starting a little bit too early, as on the top, and think that you have a solution already. If you understand what I'm trying to, and I think that's the problem when the SaaS products that you're selling today, when we're talking upskilling, that they are made in a specific way. It doesn't start with a specific problem or the organizations what they are working with. So you have to
it doesn't cater to the specific needs of the organization.
It's more like it's general.
Plug and play.
Yeah.
And I can kind of add on to that as well. I mean, what I see a lot when I come into business is that, this is idea, especially from the leadership team, that, okay, we need to use AI. And nowadays we need to use agents. And we're like, okay, where do we start with that? And I think it's funny because it's really hard to, from the leadership side to say like, okay, now is the time we're going to start. This is what we're going to do. What I've seen a lot is that, kind of like what you brought on, when you start at the bottom, and for example, like I was talking to a service installation company the other day, major one, and some of the service technicians there had built their own bots. They didn't know how to code beforehand. But, with like a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of creativity, they managed to build their own things. And it's solving their problems. It's solving their needs. And I think that's like something that you need to catch in an organization. And I think part of that is also that you need to have those, you need first the curiosity in that leadership, but also just having the tools, being able to just like explore and experiment and see what can this do for me. I think for employees is super important. And when you can catch that and see, oh, this is a great use case, and then you can bring it up.
A lot of change boils down to behaviors, right? And I think like the majority of organizations don't really know how to track the people within the organizations that are actually showcasing the certain behaviors that you're looking for that drive that innovation or transformation within the organization. If you knew that, then you know which people in the organization that you should actually put the tools in the lap of them and say, take this and run.
But how do you identify that? I mean,
Sorry?
I'm just how do you identify those people?
Well, we actually have a tool for this.
Tell me more.
No, but I mean, it's actually something that Stefan Wendin developed. So it's a tool that actually goes into the company data and it combines like machine learning, graph neural networks, AI to sort of gain all of those weak data points and paint that picture within the organization. Okay, these are the change agents within your organization. Good, then we know that. These are the people behind our success. Then we need to dive deep into, okay, what kind of traits and behaviors or skills do these people actually have? And then all of a sudden you can build a strategy around that. That's when it becomes interesting. But nobody is actually doing this today. And that's the problem, because you are a bit cautious about new things, even though you know that it needs to be done. It challenges what you already have, like the process that you have in place. That means you're all of a sudden going to be wrong in what you've done. Like the framework that you built isn't identifying what you need to identify. And that's scary.
And then you go with a generic framework
Exactly,
instead.
because then it's a checkbox.
It's easier. Yeah.
Exactly, because that is what everybody else is doing. And that's the problem.
It's like when you're doing an IT strategy or whatever,
Exactly.
you do the IT strategy, but no one reads it.
No.
But it's in the,
But it's there.
But it's there.
And it's just
Check
always a
box.
slight.
And it's to say when we're talking about AI, when AI policies, when everyone, we have an AI policy and no one knows what it is.
Yeah.
Well, what it is. Oh, but we have one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. And that's what I think about, like when we talk about why I said fearlessness. I think we need more leaders within the organization that start monitor the right things, so that you're doing the right things and the uncomfortable things sometimes, because change is uncomfortable at the end of the day. But I mean, you're going to choose the path of least resistance every single time.
But I mean, this is an interesting topic then to sort of continue on, because if we're talking about resistance and we're talking about how do we make people be more fearless, how do we make the people feel like they're in charge of doing something that is uncomfortable and which sort of puts you on the line somewhere. But what sort of competencies can we build? If we're talking about that we have these organizations that are, set up the way they are today, but if we are meaning that we can change it and we need to sort of go in and do certain actions, what do you see is going to, be steps towards being more fearless or towards doing the stuff that actually, switches things up a bit? Because we can't just, lay our hands on the table and be like, it doesn't work. How do we do it? What's the route?
I mean, I think that, like I said, you need to start somewhere and check what kind of competencies do these people that are actually driving change have today. Do we need more of that, or do we need to bring somebody on board that complements that person? There is no one size fits all, and I think that's in part the problem we're seeing right now is like you're trying to create a checkbox, and I think you said something about this, like you have to do something that is relevant for your organization. You can't look at what Google's doing for their organization because that's not applicable at, I don't know, Spotify, because it's two entirely different organizations. So, I don't know. There is no simple answer to that. And I think that that's a bit scary as well when it comes to sort of making change.
Yeah, but I think...
I think it is good to step out, actually, as a take in someone outside that do not actually know your organization that way, in that way, that can maybe ask the stupid questions and maybe find, if we talk about creativity and curiosity, that person can come with insight, because I believe that every organization gets a little bit, what to say, it's very matured in that way, and you do it the way you usually do. But then someone else has come from the outside and says and tries and comes with ideas that you haven't thought about.
Exactly.
And I think that can make a big change. And maybe that you also listen to this person in another way also.
True.
But I mean, we have two consultants here who are, I guess, then usually in kind of
exactly,
role.
what do you say?
Yeah, exactly. How do you feel like that's being...
the black sheep? Right. No, but it is true in a way that I think as a consultant you can be you can sometimes find yourself in a bit like uncomfortable positions or like uncomfortable discussions or conversations. And I think it's quite good. I mean, this on the one hand, I mean, of course, you want to do. It can be a bit tricky, to be honest. I mean, because you have on the one hand, you want to make the client happy, but on the other hand, you want to make the client more efficient, and they are not always the same thing.
No.
And I think it's quite important that you have, a bit of integrity, and that you're able to say, okay, yeah, but I think this is actually not good. Or you can, ask the stupid questions, or think, oh, what if we do this, for example? Because I think, and kind of what we're onto as well, we're talking a lot about, identifying the people, leadership, and so on. I think there are other ways as well that can be complementary to those, which is also just giving, access to tools. And I'm not saying it's just like, oh, you just give people access to tools and they will use them. That's not at all true. But in combination, because then you can be a bit more creative with them and so on. And I think that's just, it's definitely something that it's a big part of being a consultant, I would say. To just you have to act a little bit stupid sometimes.
The black sheep.
The black sheep, 100%. Yeah.
But I think it's not about stupidity. I think it's more like to be aware.
Yes, absolutely.
And be wide open. I see that. I listened to Sandvik yesterday. They have 40,000 employees. They are decentralized. Blah. How do you say? Decentralized organization. But when you talk about AI, many things you want to do is centralized because it's a big project. It costs a lot of money. But they gave them the framework, so they can be decentralized. So every part of the different companies within the company can do what they do, but they have the components to do it. So they gave them the framework. But they still hold it together, and I thought it was quite neat how they can do it in a very big organization.
Yeah.
Because it's a problem when you do centralize it, it wouldn't work in such a big organization.
I was thinking about an aspect of this when all of three of you were talking, and that is, of course, incentive. Because if you want people to go sort of out of their comfort zone where they know everything, and you have the check boxes, and you know that if you do anything within this circle of comfort, nobody's going to blame you or be mad at you. So in order for people to be able to dare to step out of it, you need some sort of incentive. Why should you be fearless or curious or
what's in it for me?
Creative. Yeah, exactly. And so let's talk a bit about incentives, and especially then maybe in the bigger sense, like if we are talking about skills and we are talking about that we need to change or adapt. What are the incentives that we think actually works? And do you think that people use this kind of thinking when they are setting up, the big plans or the strategies for where we want to achieve and where we want to end up?
I feel like I only have bad examples for that. It's just like I know there's a lot of, and I'm thinking
people need to hear them too.
It's just but it's funny. So maybe someone else can answer. But I think my take is also that you have to be very careful in measuring this, because I think a lot of times there's an urge to measure, like how good are we as an organization to use AI? And I think a lot of times those become vanity metrics. It's
That's a very good word. Yeah, a good expression. Yeah.
No, but it's true. It's something that I've seen. So I feel like I don't really have a good example. I just know that it's a very big risk because obviously you want to show that you are good, and I think part of it is also that you tend to feel good as an organization when you see that, oh great, we have we're making progress. But I think it's also just like looking at beyond that and looking at like, okay, what is actually being done? What problems are we solving? How are we doing things and so on? But I leave it up to you for the...
No, but I think it's good to fail.
Yeah. Fail forward.
Yeah. As in a good matter, I think failing is great. And especially in this era where we're living now, you have to fail to succeed. like you do when you're studying in university. You have to verify things in that sense. And when we had no one, also we've seen the problems to take a AI as a solution that you have in an MVP or in a POC to production. But apparently you see problems that will when you're trying to take it to production. And this isn't just about AI, it's about everything.
Exactly.
Because it's something new that you have to do, and you actually, when you're doing it in a test way, you can fail and you can do that, but apparently when you're coming to production, you cannot fail anymore. So I say, fail now and do it before you go to production. But then, because here you have the possibility to do it. And it doesn't matter whatever you are trying for skills or whatever you're having. I think that's a bigger aspect.
No, but I like what you said about the metrics, because I think in regards to failing, if you put the wrong vanity metrics or KPIs in place, you might actually stifle that innovation or people wanting to try things because it makes them look bad if you have that kind of overly focused.
Yeah, but you know, every great innovation has always been a fail.
Yeah, exactly.
So whatever we are thinking about.
Yeah.
Penicillin or whatever.
Exactly.
So I think that's the same today. But everyone is like a Swedish thing is we are very what you say in very much we do not want to fail because that shows that we are weak, and you don't want to be weak.
No.
But I mean, how do you? I think it's always positive to hear somebody, especially coming from a big company enterprise like you do, to talk about the importance of failing. But my experience is that people are really afraid of it because we don't usually, and I know that doesn't apply to everyone, I hope, but most organization doesn't really, favor failure.
Yeah.
It's not something that you sort of, when you show up for your, salary discussions, what did you do this year? Yeah, I failed a lot. And it would be lovely if that is where we ended up, and if that is something that would be an incentive.
But if you do it like, if we talk about boundaries, failing within boundaries, I think that's, if you can do that with the skills, also when you cheat, like when we talk about, including when we talk about AI, of course, hallucinations and whatever, how can we shorten it so it's a K? Because once again, I believe failing will make things better.
Yeah, I mean, fully agree. Go on.
And I'm thinking, adding on to that, I think it's also important to talk about like how are we failing? Because I think a lot of times it's easy to talk about like a hallucination and you want to try something that didn't work out. In my experience, a lot of times, you do a POC, proof of concept, and then you see, okay, yeah, this works kind of well, but then you're pressured to also take it to production. And the product might work in a sense that it does what it's supposed to do, but it's not being used. So we put a lot of money and effort into making something that is then not being used, like it's not being adopted, like internal tools, etc. I think that is also very important to talk about because in a way that is silently failing.
Yeah.
While at the same time having vanity metrics that showing that we're not failing. We put this thing into production.
But then you come in often to the C-level that is pushing something, but because we had a discussion a long time ago, I have this sauna theory, with the C-level are sitting together. They are sitting together in a sauna. Often, the C-level, the CEOs and...
often men, I can hear that now.
Often men, unfortunately. And they're discussing whatever. What are you doing? We're doing this AI thing for our finance. I'm like, oh shit, what I'm doing? I'm doing nothing. And then they ran to the other one. Do something. Come on, show me. So I can be in the sauna together with them. It can be golfing as well. Yeah. Something irrelevant and also something to... But, and then you're showing something that actually will not be maybe not necessary for the organization in that way. And then that means that you are jumping over a lot of people within the organization. Yeah. And that's problematic when you're talking about skilling in that way.
Absolutely.
No, but
a little bit off topic.
but it ties in, of course, because just like you were talking about trying stuff out, and if we're talking about even on the very, very small scale, like how do we make people more acceptable towards trying new things in their current work role. So if I were to tell you, like, you need to do this new thing, and you will instantly know that when you switch from your comfort zone, what you're used to, the things you know, into doing something in a new way or in a new whatever, it's going to take you more time. You're going to be more likely to not get it right. In the end, it's going to be costly for some time before you switch the return of investment, and then you start getting, the value from it. And that is failing on the very, very small part. And I think one of the reasons why we have, in my opinion, mostly failed learning system within our organizations is because we don't give room for people to be slower, to be less efficient, or to be failing, because the stakes are high. What's your opinion?
I think that organizations tend to neglect the fact that all people are on a different timeline. Like you have the innovation of adoption curve, and like you have your early majority and innovators and all of that all the way through. And you need to be able to provide people to have those different steps on that timeline and on that time frame. And that also includes like failing. The first ones that are more prone to taking risk, because this is about the ability to take risk. And in Sweden, we are generally very risk averse in our culture, and it's a behavioral change. So, and that's what I love about our model is it can identify maybe the innovators and the early adopters, let them trial and error, and then it's easier for the ones that might be more risk averse, that are further down along the time scale, to actually not make as many mistakes, but obviously they will make mistakes, but they feel more comfortable with, okay, these guys have tried this out down here, now we're up here, I'm more comfortable with taking that leap now.
Yeah, and of course, you've probably then, the process of going through these steps have been more and more refined.
Yes.
So you've learned what things not to do.
Yes.
And of course, that's super...
I think that is important, but you tend to just put technology, AI, or whatever it is in the lap of people and then just say, we bought this now, go. And it's just like...
Make it work.
Yeah, make it work. I don't know, we've invested 20 million in this, like, you have to.
We had a meeting, like 2 days ago regarding, because we are trying out Copilot within the organization. And we do know, everyone knows this is quite expensive.
How do you find it?
What?
How do you find Copilot?
Pretty crappy. But we are not working together with Microsoft. No. Still, but still, you're pushing it out to see and let everyone test it, and then you see, no one is using it. But have you given them the tools to know how to do it or how to work? Once again, like you said, you're giving them like, here you have. And you're thinking that everyone is on your same pace or level.
Exactly.
Because the one who is actually putting it out is up here. But most of the people do not, what is this? Can I ask a question? What will happen? So not depending on the Copilot, it's good or bad. But it's interesting.
You have those people as well.
But it's interesting to see. And then you pay 400 or 500 Swedish crowns per user per month. And we don't use it.
No.
Why don't you use it? I don't know. Because many are feared against. Of failing, if I'm using. So I agree what you're saying.
Yeah, Kajsa?
I'm very curious to hear your opinions on this, because I think that it's I've seen a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot of companies, but some, especially tech companies, we're looking at like tech startups or major lot, that are forcing employees to use AI. So basically saying that you have to use these AI tools.
Or you're fired, or what?
Well, it's discouraged not to do it, and especially coding with AI, because that's like for developers. It's, at least for some developers, it's obviously like a major productivity boost, but it's also a very, very steep learning curve. So, for example, like moving from an IDE or developer tool that's like VS Code to Cursor, for example. A lot of companies have made that switch, or forcing employees to make that switch. And I'm curious of your take on that? Because I know in some companies it has been fairly effective in the sense that it does drive, it gives them a push. But it's also a very crude way of asking someone to please switch the tool that you're using throughout your entire workday.
I think that's a pretty bad way of doing it. I think Cursor is a great tool. I have no knowledge in programming or whatever, and I've been trying a lot of the different Claude and Lovable or whatever. But still, also the human behind it, it can be a good help, but you have to verify everything. So everything, if you're just giving something that you have to use it, and the outcome will be crap, because still they are quite good for POCs or POC or whatever. If you are going under, you cannot use those software. It's just a helping aid in sort of way to be faster for your templates, in my matter opinion. It's like, if you're talking about Lovable.
I agree. I was going to say the same thing. Like, it sounds like these vanity metrics in action all over again. Like, we're tracking this, you need to use it, instead of like, we don't care how you solve the problem,
exactly,
as long as it's quality output.
Quality or better.
Yeah, exactly. If it's shit in, shit out, then we have a problem. Like, if it's good stuff in, good stuff out, what's the problem? I don't care how you solve it.
I think the manager need to think about, okay, we have 20 people that can code. We can be 10 if they are using Cursor.
Yeah.
And sort of, I think that is the solution. If that's the thinking of the management, then the management has some issues.
It sounds like handing people like these logical testings that people insist on all the time. It's like saying like intelligence is only one thing. Like, it's not different. It doesn't vary. It sounds like the same thing. Like, where's the sort of autonomy among the employees? I think it's important. Look at
I think that ties into another point. And sorry, I feel like I'm taking the discussion further. But it's also like, what is the value of using AI versus the value of solving a problem?
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of what you're onto. Because I think there is some value of using AI because of the exploratory part and you learning about it and the innovation and so on, but at the same time, it's really all about the problem in the end.
Yeah. But isn't that, two sides of the same coin? Because on the one hand, of course, you need to sort of maybe nurture that kind of curiosity within the company, like, okay, this is something that is new and novel to us. We don't know what it is, but we need to try it out and see what kind of value it is that we can gain from it. And the other side of the coin is, these are our problems. What is the best tool of solving them?
Exactly.
And if you can keep a good level of trying stuff out, but also keeping track of what it is that brings value to your business and what's the best sort of solution to those things. And when you map them together, of course, you're going to have the best possible outcome of, finding those kind of values. But I was just thinking, sort of the fourth thing.
Sounds very simple.
I know.
It's very sane. I like it.
But unfortunately, it isn't that simple.
No.
And the bigger the organization gets, it's harder it gets as well.
Yeah.
I love working with love the startup mentality, and I hate it when you cross the border, when it isn't startup mentality.
Yeah.
You go over 30 or 40 people.
Yeah.
And then it starts with the organization, HR or whatever, and everything about curiosity, creativity, everything like that. But, what happens?
See ya.
Yeah. And then you go in even bigger. If we're talking about Sweden as a nation, we discussed this earlier. But okay, we have AI Act that is coming, and the Swedish government. Okay, we will review it. It will take 1 year, but 1 year. What happens in a month? Whatever the 2 months. And so,
but I don't think that it's unsolvable. I think that there are structures or hierarchies or way to organize things.
You have
that
to break some walls.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, there's some stuff that's going to be more easy to sort of work through when it comes to curiosity, and there's going to be some system that's harder. And because I'm not it will never work kind of person, of course it's going to work. And there are some companies or organizations that have proven that they can be big.
There are solutions, but not willing to look at them. That's the problem. There are plenty of solutions out there. Like, we've talked to a lot of people around here that are sitting there brewing like these kind of platforms that organizations can work with. And there's a sort of I wouldn't say resentfulness, but just like a pushback from the organizations, like we want this, but we're not ready. And it's like, when are you going to be ready? When the competitors have run past you and running circles around you and you're no longer existing? I don't know. So it's just like, I don't know. Maybe it's risk averse, maybe it's something else, but
But isn't that like the
human behavior, psychology, I think it's all about.
Yeah, of course it is.
Embracing the unknown.
And I think one of the funniest things that I keep running into, and I guess all of you do too, especially working with people, is when you have this thing and you come with it, this is a possible solution for us to be more effective, to get more time, to do things better, and people are like, no, can't hear you out because we don't have time. And you're like, okay.
Well, we don't have money. Well, you spent this amount on this and it's not working, so...
You obviously have resources to spend.
Yeah.
You're just choosing.
But that's a big issue.
Yeah.
How can you involve if you're having that saying that you do not have time, and then you look over and see your consultants, and you have a rate of 17% of the people that are not actually working, 70% are working, but 30% actually have time to do something, and still you're saying we do not have time. We brought in internal consults or sort of things, and that's pretty common. And the only thing you're trying to do is how to make them more effective, in that sense. How do you get them better? How do we get more working? But still, how do we evolve? How do we implement new ideas? How do we implement new structures or solutions if we are just saying no? Because that kills creativity and it kills innovation and it creates curiosity because you don't want to add something. And I think, just for an example, from a bigger organization, you're working with pretty big software, for example, and you're bundled up with them. Can be companies like Microsoft, ServiceNow, or whatever. And that means that you are in the ecosystem that makes it pretty hard to go outside sometimes.
They're good at making themselves sticky.
Very.
But I mean, of course, we're all people working in different kind of environments. But I would, as sort of the last question, I think it's always good to sort of turn to yourself because we're always closest to how oneself behaves. So I mean, if I start with you, Alex.
Oh no.
This is the tricky one.
Oh no.
No, but what makes you, when are you prone to leave your comfort zone to actually go somewhere where you have to learn new things? When does that happen? When does that happen for you? The most effective?
The most effective? I don't know. I'm just that kind of person. I love learning new things. I love understanding how things work. And that's just how I function. I don't know when I'm prone or not to be prone. I just like solving problems at the end of the day. And when you need to solve a problem, you need to ask the tough questions and be sort of, I don't know, I usually say like, I have no problem with playing the village idiot in order to prove a point or sort of make that change happen. No problem whatsoever. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just, you have an end result. To get there, I'm prone to make whatever needs to be done happen and move the needle.
Sounds like you're not afraid to be...
Shit stirrer.
Yeah. I was going to say uncomfortable, but that's a better term for it.
Pain in the ass.
Pain in the ass, that's also a word, yeah.
Jakob, same question.
Copy paste. No, but I think I like to explore. I get quite bored.
Yeah.
Bored.
No, but if it's things need to happen, and if you do not like try or use the creativity and within, also if you're talking internally, I like more to be with the customers and say, actually, what are you actually doing? And be a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Good.
And be the person that's actually saying maybe the wrong questions, but the wrong questions need to be questioned and they need to be answered to be able to evolve.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Kajsa, final words.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm also a person that loves to learn, but I also acknowledge that, like, for me, it's a process. Like, the first step is just this kind of very uncomfortable feeling, pit in your stomach kind of thing. And then it's like, no, we're not touching that, we're walking away. And then as I walk away, there's this kind of boredom that sets in. It's just like, okay, or maybe boredom bordering to curiosity as well, and kind of you come back to it. And I've noticed that as a pattern for myself, that it's just like I always keep on coming back to it, even though I feel like at first it just, no, that's a bit, that's uncomfortable, because I think it is. We all need to adapt, and things that worked like 5 years ago may not work today, so
I
it's
see
hard.
our time is up, but I will conclude then that if we want to work with tech as one part and the human aspects as the other ones in order to make it adopted and to make it work and to make it valuable, we need to sort of step out to the places where we get to be a bit more uncomfortable and where we don't always have the answers. So thank you all for joining me, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for being here.